Hi there, and welcome to the Home Studio Rescue on YouTube. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not you should be buying hardware or plugins. So before we get into any of that, if you could please hit the subscribe button if you get any value out of this video whatsoever. Also, if you need help building your own home recording studio, learning how to mix, or just record in general, you can email me at homestudiorescue@gmail.com with any of your questions. Also, there's a link down below in the description to schedule a free 30-minute Zoom call with me if you're interested in that. So, hardware versus plugins. So, I got this question really, or it's something that's been popping up in a lot of my videos, especially when it comes to paying for the Waves update plan like I have to every couple of years, maybe every 5 years. It just depends on how much I update my operating system for my Mac computer. And for me, it's $240 every time I update. And so I had one comment say, well, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to buy hardware instead. And I get the idea behind that, but plugins are a lot cheaper, and depending on the company and where we are with technology at this point, I would feel like they are starting to, they've been close. And really the difference from hardware to plugins, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, it's not much. It's negligible. There is maybe, they've gotten to about 70 to 80% of a lot of hardware, at least in my opinion, especially I use Universal Audio a lot, and those can be very expensive plugins, but I bought a $300 Universal Audio Distressor. If it's not on sale, it's about $300, and I've also owned an actual Distressor, which I paid $1,400 for, and I can't really tell much of a difference at this point. I sold my Distressor a couple months ago for about $1,200, and that's one good thing about hardware, is that you can buy it, you can sell it, and a lot of times, if it's a good piece of hardware, it will hold its value. Sometimes it even goes up. Most times I got at least what I paid for any piece of hardware. And for a while, I worked in what's called a hybrid setup where I had analog summing, I had an API 2500, I had a Sta Level, I had a Distressor, I had a TG1. I kind of rifled through a lot of different things, and very expensive compressors. I had API EQs. We're talking about stuff that's anywhere from $800 to $2,000 at least. And what I really discovered is I did a couple of mixes in the box, and I did a couple of mixes in this hybrid fashion, and actually my in the box mixes were better. They sounded better. And I'm not saying that that is how it's going to be for everyone, but what I am saying is for me, the actual hardware didn't really make a difference. And so I also went to the Blackbird Academy in Nashville, Tennessee, kind of chasing this whole hardware dragon. And the first day I walked in there, they had a compressor called a Fairchild, and they have 10 of them at Blackbird, and 1,400 vintage mics, and Neve consoles, and all this other stuff. It's like the Willy Wonka of recording gear. That's just everything you could ever think of, they have it. And so I ended up going to school there, and I got to work on a lot of projects while I was in school, at the school, recording studio musicians, the best musicians in Nashville. And then I got to work on some of those projects where we were recording local bands. And sometimes it sounded amazing going through all of this gear, like $10 million chains and things like that, insane gear, just maybe not that expensive, but really expensive stuff, $100,000 mics. And sometimes I wouldn't even know how to mix it. It sounded so good. I wouldn't know what to even do to enhance it. In fact, I'd just be afraid that I would mess up what already sounded like a done record. And then there was stuff that just sounded like garbage. There was stuff that didn't sound good. There was mediocre songs. And I say all of this to say your gear is not what dictates how your song comes out. It's about the musician, the performance. It's about the instrument. Like if you want drums to sound a certain way, they need to sound that way in the room, and you need to record them in a room that sounds the way that you want those drums to sound. There's a lot of things that go into it that have nothing to do with the actual preamps or compressors or any of that stuff. Those things are tools, and they add to the sound. But overall, it's about what you put into your DAW, onto a tape machine, whatever you're using to record. It's about the sound going in. It's about the performance. And for me, I thought I could buy a at some point that if I just had a TG1 compressor, my drums would sound like this or sound like that. And some of that was true. It helped, but there's other things to focus on that are much more important than hardware and getting expensive preamps and all this other stuff. You know, this microphone, the audio interface, all this stuff, these are tools, and they do make some bit of difference, but it's about what you put into it. I'm never going to sound like Michael Jackson on this mic, even though he used this for Thriller. I'm not going to sound like him. It's just impossible. And this mic, it doesn't have much to do with how my voice sounds versus his voice. I mean, I'm not saying that the mics don't make a difference and that for a particular person there isn't a good mic or whatever. What I am saying is that hardware, it's a rabbit hole financially. And the plugins now, they're good enough. The ones that come with your DAW are good enough. Don't worry about, should I be buying hardware? Should I be buying plugins? Try to get as good as you can at recording the source you're recording. Get that sounding as good as it can on the way in, and use the plugins you have. And if there's a plugin that will help you, buy it. If there's a microphone that you want, buy it. But don't buy this stuff under the notion that it's going to fix something in your recordings or take it to another level. I mean, there's certain things that will definitely help, but at the end of the day, it's about capturing the best sound you can on the way in and then using the tools you have to get that, to maybe add some polish to it or bring it to another level. So for me, hardware versus plugins, I went with plugins. I sold all my hardware. I sold my Distressor a couple months ago, and I don't miss it. And in fact, I have a Universal Apollo Twin. I'm not saying you need one of those. I got one of those, and I love it because I can have a tape machine emulation. I can have a Distressor. I can have a Neve preamp emulation. All of this stuff stacking up to kind of create this sound. And that's part of the thing that, you know, when I just had a Distressor, I had a preamp, a really nice Pacifica preamp, and a Distressor. And I had to really push the Distressor if I wanted to get it to saturate. But now I've got multiple levels of saturation going a little bit. So it's not as, I'm not having to work it so hard. But at any rate, plugins are good. They are fine. You do not need hardware. Please don't go under this misconception that hardware is so much better, especially for people like us who are in a basement or a home studio with one microphone and an audio interface. You don't need to get into the hardware stuff. It's a preference. It's a choice. I'm not saying that stuff isn't good or useful. I'm just saying that for most people, plugins are good. Even the plugins that come with your DAW are good. So just stick with that stuff. Make the best music you can. If you got any value out of this video, please hit the subscribe button. If you got any encouragement that what you have is good to make music with, just do that. Get as good as you can using what you have to make the best music you can. That's my message. If you'd like to do a Zoom call, there's a link down below in the description. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about with your music and recording, or you can shoot me a question at homestudiorescue@gmail.com. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.